just be while the video's playing?
No, I think if you open your mics, that will go and be part of the webinar, unfortunately.
So if we mute ourselves, right? Or
Perfect.
just don't say anything.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to take the webinar live.
So if we mute ourselves, right? Or just don't say anything.
Fabulous. Okay, so we are finally all sorted. Hi everyone who's watching. I'm Isabella Crowther and I'm with the man, the myth, the legend, Gareth Evans. This is the panelist for Keynote. So thank you so much for spending your time with us here. So we're gonna watch Gareth's wonderful video. And then we're gonna jump into some questions. So how are you, Gareth? You good?
I'm good. Thanks very much. Thanks for asking. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And what a wonderful introduction too. The man, the myth, the legend. I like that. I might keep it.
Yeah, I think that would be top notch. It's like,
yeah, excellent. I like it. These days, there's lots of different ways to generate revenue as a musician. It is possible to make a reasonable amount of money without ever leaving your house to play a gig. My name is Gareth Evans and I'm a musician who's been making a living online full-time since 2015. And I've been asked to share some of my experiences today with a view to help others use their skills to pay the bills through working exclusively online, especially now since the COVID lockdown has all but crippled the live music scene with no resolution on the horizon. So this talk should be relevant to you if you are interested in how it's possible to make money as a musician online. It includes practical advice on how to grow a following and what skills, knowledge and equipment you're going to need in order to be successful. Firstly, a little bit about me and my background. So for me, it all began with a single guitar video that I published to YouTube back in September 2009. And at the time, I was 28 years old, working full-time in a factory, married with 2 young children, and I had no music career whatsoever. And today I have a combined 1.1 million YouTube subscribers, 110,000 monthly page views on my website, 3,000 monthly Spotify listeners, 45,000 followers on my Facebook page, 15,000 Instagram followers, 5,000 Twitter followers, and over 400 supporters on the crowdfunding site Patreon. And honestly, I had no idea all of that would result from that very first video I published in 2009. At the time, I knew very little about recording music, recording and editing video, graphic design, audio engineering, running a website, growing an online following, running a crowdfunding page, publishing and distributing music, or maintaining a social media account, and so on. The best I had back in 2009 was a dead-end job and a really cheesy account on MySpace. Being a musician who operates almost solely online has worked out pretty well for me. And I did all of that without hardly having to play a gig. In fact, I can probably count on one hand the amount of times I've played live in that time. Unfortunately, my approach won't work for everybody, but there are lessons I've learned along the way, some things I can hopefully share with you here today, which should provide you some practical advice and even inspire others to enhance their music careers by using the internet. There are 3 things that I want to cover today. First up, and most importantly of all in my view, is how to gain a following. Now, I think this is the main important step for being successful and generating income online, is having a big following. Although you can be successful without followers, having a reasonable amount of followers makes everything a whole lot easier, in my opinion. So I'm going to elaborate on all that shortly. But growing a following isn't easy when you're starting out. And the first thing to kind of get in your head is that content is king. If you're generating content, you have to create something that people want to watch, want to read, want to listen to. No matter how you're making money online, that always stands true. The better the content, the more followers you get, the easier it is to make money. It's that simple. But you can't expect to go from generating nothing at all to all of a sudden making the best type of that content on that platform. So you have to begin modestly, learn and improve as you go. You have to start somewhere. You can't be the best when you're first off. And with this in mind, my first videos, looking back on them now, they were absolutely terrible in relation to the quality of my content today. It's a very steep learning curve, but you do have to approach it with a certain mindset. Every time you post, there are always things that you can learn. You have to use those learnings to improve your quality in future and then repeat. So it's post, learn, improve, repeat. And that's a formula that will work for a lot of people, if not the majority of people who do generate online content. If you're struggling for ideas or inspiration for your content, then look for some role models to learn things from. So do some research, recognize artists or creators who produce content that you admire. It could be YouTube videos, Facebook or Instagram posts, for example, music on Spotify, even TikTok. So you should learn how they operate, analyze why you think they're so successful, and try and emulate what they're doing specifically. And I'm not saying duplicate their content. You should always try and learn different lessons from different creators. Just little things here and there. And there's a Chinese proverb that I like to use: listen to all, plucking a feather from every passing goose, but follow no one absolutely. And so along my journey, there have been a number of successful online creators from whom I've plucked a feather from, and many of whom I've not necessarily been a fan of. But I do recognize that everyone who is successful for a reason. And it's up to me to try and figure out how they've been successful. What is it about them that's been successful, and try and implement that in my own productions. So the next topic is, where should you post your content? Basically, it doesn't matter. Growing a reasonable sized following on any platform is going to be beneficial to you, and it's going to help you generate revenue online. You should decide which one works best for you or which one suits you best, and then focus on that one. Although always try and cross promote and have numerous different accounts on different social media platforms, because the more platforms that you got, the better. Each platform has their own unique users who might not use the other platforms, so it pays to be active on as many as possible. The 4 platforms that I use are YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. They suit me the best. I try and post everything that I create to all of those platforms. So in my opinion, the absolute best way to grow a following from scratch as an aspiring performing musician is to create cover videos on YouTube. But why cover videos on YouTube, I hear you ask? People love to hear different versions of their favorite songs. Radio 1 Live Lounge is a good example of how popular this genre is. Everyone loves Ben Howard doing Lana Del Rey song, or James Bay doing Oasis, for example. It's just something about it. It's just entertaining. And it's no coincidence that many of today's most successful artists started their careers covering songs on YouTube, helping them firstly grow a fan base, and secondly hone their skills as a musician or a songwriter. Now, the example I like to use is Gabrielle Aplin. She started from scratch on YouTube. Some of her early videos are very cute. They're still up there, which is great. You can look at other examples: Justin Bieber, Carly Rae Jepsen, Shawn Mendes, 5 Seconds of Summer, The Weeknd, James Bay, Ed Sheeran. All those were posting covers on YouTube before they found their fame. I also attribute a large part of my success to the guitar covers that I produce. My most viewed video today is my cover of 7 Years by Lucas Graham, and it has over 7.4 million views. But you don't necessarily have to make covers either. Some artists are successful in spite of never covering anyone else's songs. But covering songs is a means to an end, in my opinion. It's a way to gain more followers quickly. The way I like to think about it is, if you're going to open a shop, you want to open a shop on the high street where everyone's walking past, right? So more people can see you, more people can just walk in. And you don't open a shop down a side street where you're getting less footfall. Passing trade is greatly reduced that way. When you produce a cover song, cover songs are really popular. Everyone searches for them. You get a lot of people happening across your videos. So making covers is just like opening a shop on a high street where everyone walks by. So here are my top tips for making YouTube covers. So start with covering songs that you like, your own musical influences, for example. Create covers of their songs. That way you're going to attract the following with the same musical taste. Therefore, they'll be better able to appreciate your own original work when you start posting them. My second tip is mix in some new popular or trending songs to get higher traffic. Nobody wants to cover Gangnam Style by Psy, but it's got over 2 billion views probably on YouTube by now. If it means putting food on the table, you should definitely consider it. My next tip is make the songs your own. Put your own slant on it. Play with different BPMs or transcribe it into a minor key, for example. Make it different. Or you could try have 5 people play on a single guitar like Walk Off the Earth did with their amazing cover of Somebody I Used to Know.
Now and then I think of when we were together.
Next tip is acoustic covers are a lot easier to produce. So start with basic production, one camera, and basic audio editing. Something that you can generate yourself, something you don't have to rely on anybody else to produce for you. Being self-sufficient is a key philosophy in content creation. So you're able to produce at will and not have to rely on anybody else. And then you can increase your production values as you go, as you learn as a creator. My next tip is always listen to your audience. The audience doesn't lie, so if there's something off about the video, they're always going to tell you. It's up to you to analyze their feedback. If it's something that you can fix, then you should listen to them and adapt your production in future. If it's something you don't want to fix, like a stylistic choice or something, you can quite happily ignore them, thank them for the feedback anyway, and still be courteous and kind to them. That kind of feeds into my next point, which is the relationship between you and your viewers is really important as an online creator. Try and always promote engagement. Communicate well with the people who take the time to comment. If you played a live gig, someone walked up to you, you wouldn't ignore them if they told you how awesome you were. It's not always easy, especially if your video gets hundreds and hundreds of comments, but for the most part, you have to keep that creator-viewer relationship very good. My next tip is don't be generic, bland, or boring. You have to show people your personality and be yourself. There's thousands of creators doing maybe the same thing as you. You have to identify what makes you different and enhance that and play into that, lean into it. Find out what makes you unique and different and use that to your advantage. My next tip is make your thumbnails stand out to make people want to click. So take a look at what other people are doing for their thumbnails to get some idea of what's working. Look at the ones that you like and try and kind of mimic them. Again, plucking a feather, not copying them exactly. These things happen in trends as well, especially on YouTube. There's a trend of a certain type of thumbnail that's popular for a while and then it changes to another one. So always assess what's going on. Apply those principles to your own thumbnails. So I've got 5 other quick points that I want to go over in order to increase your viewership. Firstly, live streaming is a good way, especially if you're a musician. Get people in for maybe half an hour to play a few songs, get interacting with your audience and maybe attract some new followers that way. It's quick and easy content and people appreciate that, especially now. Another one is collaborating with other artists. What this does is it helps you pool your followers. If you post 2 videos, one on each of your channels, some of your followers will follow them, some of their followers will follow you. Everybody wins. Everyone increases their following. Next up, think about doing instrument lessons, like guitar lessons is something I'm very familiar with. I've done a lot of that. As an example of bigger artists who are doing this recently, especially during the lockdown, is Andy McKee. He's been doing videos of how to play some of his like fingerstyle songs, as well as James Bay. He's been doing some live stream lessons, combining it with live streaming to show people how to play his songs. Next is cross promotion on all your accounts. Help you grow social media accounts on other platforms. So if you've got following on YouTube, tell them to go follow you on Facebook and Twitter as well, and vice versa. That way you get followers on all different accounts. Helps you being able to generate content by having lots of followers in different accounts. And lastly, post frequently. It helps with the algorithm. Don't leave it a month or 2 before you post again. Every week is kind of ideal. Figure out what works best for you. You don't have to do it weekly, but I would strongly advise you to do it because that's what works best for YouTube right now. Works good in the algorithm. I want to use an example now. One of my favorite artists is called Passenger. and he's got almost 6 million subscribers on YouTube. He always posts stripped back versions of his songs on his channel. So it's just him and his guitar, and it connects really well with his audience. He also often posts brand new songs to YouTube before recording them and releasing them officially on EPs or albums forever. And he's been doing that a lot during lockdown too. So it's all about connecting with your audience and get people to appreciate what you're doing, but you have to treat them well. You have to produce content for them. And I think Passenger is a great example. 6 million subscribers, it speaks for itself. That's what YouTube can do for you as a performing musician during this time. Is it allows you to stay active, helps you get that musical outlet if you want to be able to play and you're just not been able to at the moment. And also it allows you to have that interaction with people, which you can't get at the moment because maybe you can't go out as much. But with all that said, you don't have to post to YouTube. And I got to emphasize this, is you can do all of this on Instagram, you can do it on Facebook video, you can do that on Twitch maybe as well, TikTok if you're that way inclined. Wherever you've got a following, it doesn't matter where it is. If you've got a reasonable amount of following, from a few hundred to a few thousand, you can utilize them followers in order to help you make revenue. Doesn't matter what platform. The more followers you got, the easier it is to make revenue. So that's my advice on growing an audience. Next up, how do you actually make revenue from that audience? So once you've got a bunch of followers, you can harness them to promote any of your work. If you're releasing a new album, for example, you got some new merch coming out, you let people know, they'll go to the store, you'll generate revenue from that. And the way I like to approach this is holistically. Everything works well together. I don't focus mainly just on YouTube. The more revenue streams that you've got from different directions, the better, more stable it is for you as an online creator. Think around a fifth of my income comes from YouTube and everything else is from the rest. So talking specifically about YouTube, obviously it's ads on the videos. Now, if it's original content, it's all fine and dandy, you get all the revenue from those ads. However, if you're making cover videos, you will often get hit by copyright claims from people who own the copyright to the music. It's not a big problem. Basically kicks in a revenue sharing thing for the most part now. So you probably get 15 to 20% of the revenue from the ads on your videos. It's not a great deal of money, but like I said, you think about it holistically, a little bit of revenue from all the different avenues and it all adds up. You can also think about doing vlogs or behind the scenes videos to supplement your income if you are focusing on doing covers. That way you get all the money from those types of videos and you don't just get a small cut like you do on the cover videos. So the next way is get your music on the stores. Now, obviously, as an artist, you probably already do this to some extent, or you've looked into this or whatever. So you need a distribution platform. And the one I use is called DistroKid, basically because it's cheap and it's convenient. Their basic package starts at around $20 a year, and that allows you to upload as many songs as you like for a whole year. So there's no additional fees on top of that, unless it's a cover, and then you have to acquire a license for the covers, which they can facilitate for you. So you just fill out a form, pay a little bit extra money, they get the cover license for you, and you can then throw your covers online and start making money by selling them or the streams on them. Now, of all the stores which I would recommend you promote more than the others is Spotify, because in my experience, over 50% of my revenue from all the stores comes from Spotify. And I personally know a bunch of recording artists who make a mint on Spotify just releasing covers. So if you've got followers, it is possible to be a successful recording artist this way without ever having to leave your house to perform. Who knows, you could be making a decent wad of money, and that's passive as well. You don't have to do anything for that. So my next method of generating income is live streaming. And you can do this on Twitch, you can do it on YouTube, Instagram and Facebook, although you can't monetize on Instagram and Facebook to my knowledge. Twitch and YouTube are the best ways. So these platforms allow your fans to leave donations and earn some extra revenue that way. And that's a good way of interacting with your fans as well. It's another avenue of income if you can generate a little bit of money from doing that. Next up is merchandise, like t-shirts, stickers, badges, whatever else that people want with your face or image or brand on. This is now easier than ever with websites who facilitate all the fulfillment of this merch. For example, Redbubble or Teespring are two that spring to mind. The problem with this is that you do have to come up with the designs yourself. You can do all that yourself if you know a little about graphic design, or you can ask a friend to do it for you if they've got the skills. And then you simply just promote your products to your followers. They go to the stores, buy the product, it gets fulfilled by the website, and you get a cut of the profits. Our next up is crowdfunding. So there's two different methods here. The first is a project. So if you've got a new album coming out, for example, or you're working on something like a one-time thing, then Kickstarter is the place to be. Promote your new album, ask people to support you, and reward them with merchandise or digital downloads, or like the first CDs that you print, or whatever. That is a way of generating revenue in order to fund projects that you're doing. And the other crowdfunding platform is Patreon. It's the one that I use, and this is good for ongoing projects like general content creation. So for YouTubers who are making weekly, monthly content on YouTube, this is great for them. You can have rewards just like on Kickstarter. So things like early access to content, discount on merch stores, or even a live stream every month where you get to talk with people who pledge a certain amount of money, for example. So the next way to generate revenue by using your online following is instrument lessons. Now, there are two ways of doing this. Firstly, the way that I do it, I post videos, guitar lesson videos to YouTube. You get a lot of people following because they just like free lessons. That's one way of doing it. The second way of doing it is giving people one-to-one guitar lessons. Now this can be done over Skype. You can offer this to your fans. You also tie this into a reward on Patreon, for example. So you can have a certain tier on Patreon, say a certain amount per month, includes a free one-on-one guitar lesson, and that's a good way to generate income. Next up is a website. It's great for promotion of you and your band, or you as an artist, and allows people to find you and your other social media accounts. So if someone Google searches you, they come across your website, they can find you on all the other platforms if you're there. So that's great. Makes you look professional. It's a lot better than just a Facebook page. However, it will cost you money to maintain, so you got to keep that in mind, whether it's worth it to you. You could monetize the website if you wanted to. If you've got enough traffic, you could cover costs that way. Or, it depends, if you've got some awesome content on there, a lot of people will come, you could make a decent amount of revenue from it that way. So in conclusion, the idea is that you hedge your bets and don't heavily rely on one specific stream of income. You don't have to make a huge amount from any one specifically. A little revenue from a lot of different sources is a lot more sustainable and stable. So that's the way I always approach it, thinking about generating revenue holistically. Everything you create has many different ways of generating income for you. So you have to think about the overall big picture. So that is my advice on how to make money from having an online following as a musician. Now, the last topic is about the skills, equipment, and knowledge you're going to need to invest in order to make it work for you. Now, it is important to adopt a positive or the right attitude to online creation. The essence of this is to be as self-sufficient as possible so that you don't have to rely on other people to help you with your projects. Nobody can let you down that way, and there's no limitations to the amount that you can produce outside of your own capacity. So if you need something doing, I advise that you learn how to do it yourself. If you need to pick up as many relevant skills as possible in your journey as a content creator. So first up, cameras and videography. Now, many mobile phones these days are very decent cameras for producing video. My very first video on YouTube was produced using an iPhone 3GS, and you can get a lot better cameras that fit in your pocket these days than that one that I used. I would advise you to get a tripod and a mount to fit your phone. That way you can frame your video however you want to. Definitely do not rely on the audio from your phone, however. Good audio can make a huge difference in the perceived quality of your videos. So I would say invest in a decent audio setup before investing in an expensive camera. But if you are looking to upgrade your camera and get something a bit more professional, take a look at a DSLR, for example, because you get some really good quality. And lastly, on this point, lighting is very important. There's a lot to learn about videography, but in essence, the more light, the better. Your camera will perform better when there's more light. So think about getting a soft box or something for sticking in the room where you're going to be recording. Next up, audio equipment and engineering. You can enhance your home recordings with some basic equipment. And if you're on a budget, I would recommend getting a USB condenser microphone, one like the Blue Yeti USB condenser mic. I got one of these and I picked it up for around 50 quid off Amazon a few years ago. They've gone up in price since then, but they are good quality and they do a decent job as an entry-level microphone without the need for a audio interface. I would pair that with some free audio software if you're on a shoestring budget. There's one called Audacity, which I used to use. So I used that combination for a number of years and it worked well for me. But if you do want to take a step up and you've got a slightly higher budget, look at the Focusrite Scarlett Solo as an audio interface, or the 2i2, which gives you 2 inputs. And pair that with an XLR mic like the Rode NT1. Now that's what this one is. Fits for most purposes. I use it for my guitar, recording, everything. And if you are taking the step up, I would recommend using a better audio software such as Logic, which you can get on the Mac. It retails around £200, but it is a lifetime license. You don't have to pay monthly and you get free updates with it. So I really would recommend that. You could even use GarageBand. GarageBand is pretty good. It's a smaller version of Logic, but it does the job and it's free. Next up, mixing and editing your own audio. I would say here you're best off learning the basics of EQ, compression and reverb. That can go a long way in your recordings. You don't need it to be too fancy. You don't want to overdo it. You just need it to be right. Obviously, if someone's there helping you and you can learn off somebody that you know, all the best. There's also lots of decent video tutorials on YouTube and other websites too. More on that in a sec. Next up, video editing. Now, I would recommend using Final Cut Pro, which is what I use for my video editing. Again, it is expensive, £300, but you do get the license for life and you get free updates with it. Also, you need a Mac, obviously, in order to run it. But I wouldn't recommend any subscription-based editing software because over the long run, you're just paying loads of money. I used to use one called Coral Video Studio Pro, which was back in the day, years and years ago, before I upgraded to Final Cut Pro. So shop around, look what works for you. You don't need anything too complicated and big if you're just starting out, that's for sure. Next up, graphic design. And it is handy to be able to produce all your own graphics, artwork or promotional materials whenever you like. So learning how to use some software is going to be very beneficial for you, especially if you're posting a lot to YouTube or whatever. The one I use is called Affinity Photo, and it's just like Photoshop in essence, but you only pay a one-off fee for $50 or £50. And then that's it. You've got the license for life. Again, I think you get free updates for life with that too. You also get a free trial with that, so you can try it too. I would highly recommend it. Very powerful bit of software and a lot cheaper than paying monthly for Photoshop. However, if you're looking for something free, it is a bit glitchy, but there's one called GIMP, G-I-M-P, and that's an open source software that you can use for doing your graphics and stuff like that. But check it out. If you've got no budget at all, that does the job. Next up, learning new skills. Obviously, you can learn some new instruments. It's pretty obvious. If you're looking to create music autonomously, then invest your time in learning a new instrument, and that applies whether you're just making online content or just being a musician in general. So that's a bit of a obvious type of answer, but I put it on this list anyway. The last one I've put on this list is social media management. You can't underestimate how important this is because some people get it very wrong. You do have to learn the do's and don'ts of posting on social media. Some things work well, some things don't. Don't insult people unless that's your thing, right? People are going to be nasty to you on the internet. That's just how the internet is. You don't have to insult them back. Just ignore them, block them, whatever. That's the do's, right? Unless you're James Blunt, because apparently it works really well for him. That's his thing. He insults people and he gets away with it and it's funny. So unless it's your shtick, unless that's your thing as part of your persona, I advise not to do that. But there's loads of different things that you should invest in learning about social media management. So to sum all of that up, remember, the more that you can do for yourself, the less you have to rely on other people having the time to work for you, and the less money it costs you in the long run. It's essentially cheaper and more efficient to do it all yourself, providing you're willing to put the hard work in required. And also you get the added bonus of learning all these new skills that you could possibly use as a side hustle. For example, if you get really proficient at video production or editing or audio production, photography, anything like that, you can use those skills to land you more opportunities out in the real world, or even online opportunities which are separate from your musical work. So I would advise you, YouTube is a great place to learn these things. If you've got friends who are willing to teach you as well, you can always ask them. But there are sites like Skillshare, which are pretty good. I'm not affiliated with them, but I've used it in the past. They give you 2 months free and then you can cancel at any time, so you don't have to subscribe to them. But there are loads of different tutorials on there for making the most of your creative skills, let's say, and learning new softwares and things like that. So I've definitely done that in the past. I use a mix of YouTube tutorials and free trials on websites like that. So that is it. That's the end of my presentation today, and I hope that you've learned something useful. And hopefully I've illustrated to you that your musical ambitions don't have to be put on hold just because you can't play live right now. Lockdown has been devastating for a lot of people, but there is hope. And the example that I like to use to keep people hopeful is William Shakespeare wrote some of his best works while he was in a lockdown from the bubonic plague. In 1606, all the theatres across the country were forced to close, including Shakespeare's. And in that downtime, he wrote Macbeth, King Lear, and Antony and Cleopatra. So without that lockdown, maybe those works never get written. So let that be some inspiration for you. Now, I'm not saying you're going to work on something during lockdown that will be remembered for centuries, studied in schools, and hailed as some of the best creative work ever made. But the idea is that you come out the other end of this situation in a better place than when you went into it. The music doesn't have to stop just because there's nobody in the room listening to you. Thanks for watching.
Excellent. So that every time I watch that, there's something new and interesting in it. I cannot get bored by it. It's like, oh, there's another excellent piece of advice. There's another gem. It's such a brilliant video, Gareth.
Well, thank you very much. I did take time to prepare everything. It's hard to condense everything that you've learned over 11 years of producing content into one video, especially when they said 20 minutes, do it 20 minutes. I'm like, I wrote 11 pages. What am I supposed to do? So yeah, that's why it's not really compact. And there's a lot of things that you could, topics that you could just take out and just elaborate on and just explain in detail. Just any of those points that I just kind of shifted through. But yeah, I did try and keep it as broad as possible.
I think that kind of paints all the basis for everyone, so everyone kind of comes away with a little bit of something, which is always great. So should we start at the kind of the very beginning of things? So YouTube is your main platform, and I was interested in what would be the first 5 steps if you were to start out again. What would be the first 5 steps you would take to kind of build from the beginning?
Right. So I think I remember back at the beginning, I'd post a video that I don't know, something that if it was a cover or whatever, you know, you'd prepare a video, then you'd post it, and then to gain people, you know, you need to get some people watching it, and it's all about momentum, right? So I remember going to other videos that were similar and asking people, why don't you check out this video on my channel? And I used to do that just to get maybe half a dozen people looking, and then maybe it's always the first dozen subscribers that are most difficult to get, and then every time you've got a new video, then it gets posted to the dozen subscribers, and then you've got more views, and it's easy to gain views and subscribers when you've got them. So it's like a snowball effect, really, and it's really difficult to get that momentum going. So anything you can, really post it to your social media pages if you've got family and friends that you can that can check them out, check the video out for you, anything at all, just to get those first few 100 views, first dozen or so subscribers.
Fabulous, really interesting. So it really, watching the video, it made me realize that the fans are always at the core of everything that you do. Are there examples of, you know, there must be people who come away with sort of vanity metrics, and how do you kind of gauge yourself when you're looking at someone who's, you know, millions and millions of subscribers or millions of Instagram followers, and then looking at yourself, and not to say that people who have millions of subscribers are all vanity metrics, but how do you know you're going about it the right way? How do you know that you're making those true fans and that you're not kind of racking up people that will look for 5 minutes and then go away a month later?
That's a really, really interesting question. There's no way of knowing if people are going to stick around, and I don't know. I don't know what you mean about that. From my experience, I think of the people that I look up to on YouTube, they're always like down to earth. They're always, not big egos, and that's the kind of creator that I'm affiliated with. That I warm to. So I've always tried to base my content and my online persona, I guess, on that type of person. But it's about being yourself. It's about being down to earth. And I think that's the beauty of a platform like YouTube, is that you can connect with people and people connect with you, because people buy into personalities, right? They buy into you as a person, not the stuff that you're making. That is kind of, although it's not completely irrelevant, but it's kind of a side thing. People invest in you as a person, as a personality. That's why part of the presentation, I said, focus on being yourself and enhancing the things that makes you different about yourself, because there's so many people on YouTube these days. People want to see something different, because the amount of generic YouTubers out there is insurmountable sometimes. You've got to pick out what makes you different.
And so once you've racked up some true fans and you feel like you're gaining traction, how do you know that you're stable enough to go, right, I think I can quit my day job, or I might be able to kind of cut back to part-time work? How do you gauge that? Where are the telltale signs?
Well, obviously that's a personal decision, and it was a decision that the wife and I made together. It was a difficult thing, because I had a stable job in a factory, which was full time, and when I made the leap, it was a leap of faith. You've got a certain amount of income coming in. How do you know it's going to be there next month? And it gets to that point where, you have got to decide, if you can scale back on your current commitments and maybe commit a little bit more time to your content. That's great. That's a transition period that could work for you. But for me, it was just like a sheer cliff face where I just had to take the leap. And luckily enough, my wife was supportive enough to be able to, we could deal with that together. So that's one of the most difficult, another great question, but the most difficult things to gauge as a content creator, because you're never really sure if you can sustain the income. And for me now, I think the security that I get is from the patron supporters, the people who support me on the on the crowdfunding pages, because without them, I wouldn't know what next month would bring, given YouTube's let's say uncertain algorithms. You can never be sure what from moments to the next what your revenue is going to be, but always, like I say, diversify your income, and then it spreads the risk.
Patreon is a fascinating one. It kind of, as the name suggests, it's lovely that you can kind of go back to an old way of your fans giving you money. Like, people would invest in artists and be patrons, which is a really fantastic thing. And what is your experience with Patreon?
Like I said, it's a godsend for me. I think when it came about, it was just at the right time, because you can never rely on the YouTube algorithms from one month to the next, depending on time of year, advertising revenues, and just the algorithm dictates how many views you get, how many people watch your videos, how much revenue you get from that. So it's all up in the air. But with Patreon, it sounds like a commercial now, but with Patreon, I knew that I could pay my bills next month. No, it's, if you've got that core following, especially, you can offer some extra content for the people who want to follow you. So you do a live stream every month, or something that people will be appreciative of, and that makes them feel like they're special to them, because they're supporting you. They get that extra reward from it. So I couldn't speak highly enough of Patreon.
And how do you negotiate the different tiers that you create? What do you decide is, I suppose it is person to person and artist to artist, but how do you decide what is worth monetary value of the thing that you're doing? How do you, juggle that?
Yeah, well, my main way of figuring out anything like this is just to copy everyone else. So just look at what everyone else is doing, and then try, because that way you can't. I always want to seem fair, right? So if people are offering a certain thing for a certain price, that's generally the right price to go for. So you see if 3 other people doing it, that's about right. Let's do that. I think. It would be more difficult if my content was so unique that the rewards would be different. But in general, there's always going to be half a dozen at least other people doing the same thing as you.
That's excellent advice. That's really great advice. So how do you set goals for your business and for your career, and how far in advance do you look out when you set goals, if you set goals at all?
Well, good question. It's funny, when I first, I'm thinking right back when I was working in a factory full time, YouTube, it was maybe 2012 or something like that. YouTube switched on monetization for my channel. I was like, right, I'm making £5 a month off these videos. I'm going to do it for a living. As naive as I was. And then I figured out, right, I've got X amount of videos. I'm making X amount of money. If I multiply that number, then hopefully that number will multiply too. So I worked it all out, right? I need this many videos by the end of this year, that many videos by the end of next year. And then I worked out, right, that many views by the end of this year. And so I planned out, my 5-year plan was to quit my job by 2015, I think. And I managed to leave in December 2014, I believe it was, or yeah, I was a year early anyway. So yeah, I'd laid it all out. I saw how much my content was attracting new followers, attracting new views, and I kind of projected it. And I thought, right, if I keep making videos at this pace, then I'll achieve my aims that way. And I think that's a good way to think about it because it keeps you motivated. I want 60,000 subscribers by the end of year 5 or whatever it is. You'll find that, if you're committed enough, you'll find that you always exceed what you're looking for. Well, in my experience, from the people I've been, working with or I've made friends with and that on YouTube, always seems to be the case.
So you saw it as business from day one?
Well, not really. I mean, it's turned into a business because I wanted somebody to, well, I thought it was just, a one-man band type of thing. What I'll do is I'll just earn enough money to pay myself. But then I find the first year was so lonely and isolating, I wasn't motivated to do any work. Then I thought, well, if I made a little bit more money, be able to pay someone else to do my editing or someone else to help me with it. That's when the business side came into it. So that's, yeah, it was just becoming a business was just a side product of to fulfill the necessity of me being a lonely person at home every day working on my own, which wasn't ideal. It's not the most creative of situations to be in.
Fab. So we're just going to look at the questions that have come up in the chat. So this is where my dyslexia kicks in. So I'm sorry, I apologise everyone if I thoroughly embarrass myself, which I will. So Sarah, she's written here, you mentioned getting revenue from ads on YouTube, but how do your videos get ads, ad interest?
How do my videos get ads? So I think I mentioned in the video, there's a threshold of views, of view time and the subscribers that you need in order to enable monetization on your YouTube account. But once it's enabled, it's facilitated solely by YouTube. So you upload a video, YouTube asks you if you want to monetize it, you opt in, yes. If it's over 8 minutes, you're allowed to decide if you want mid-roll ads. So you just drop it in at the 4-minute mark or whatever, or you can let YouTube handle all that. And then you click go, and then YouTube handles all the the back end rights and stuff like that. So what generally happens is if I upload a cover, then a claim comes on my video. So UPM or Sony or whatever claim this video on behalf of their artist, and they're claiming it with a view to revenue share the AdSense from this video with me. So that's all done automatically. I don't have to do anything. Once I've opted in at the initial stage, it's all done by YouTube, and then that's it. YouTube, you've got to connect your AdSense account, so you need a Google AdSense account. But once that's all connected up, YouTube then works out how much revenue the video makes from the adverts. It splits off your little chunk and then puts it to your AdSense account, and then you cash out from there.
Okay. And she's also left a second question. You say that people who are making money from Spotify. Any tips on that? As I was under the impression that the income from streaming is super low.
Well, it's about having the number of followers. I mean, if you've got 200,000 followers on Spotify, whenever you release, if you're doing covers, it's easy because you've got a bounty of possible content. It's almost infinite the amount of. If you're just doing your own original songs, then it's more difficult because obviously you're limited by your own creativity then. But yeah, it's all about the followers. The amount of monthly. You look at people on YouTube, Voice Avenue. There's a guy called God, I forget his name now. Used to be in Matthew. I'm sorry, I'm going to completely butcher this. My memory's not great, but he used to. He does covers, right? And he's done covers for years, and he's not huge on YouTube, but on Spotify he's got loads and loads of followers. Spotify is its own little beast, right? You can analyze how to get big on Spotify, in different ways. You get on people's playlists, get people to follow you. I'm not an expert on Spotify, but there is a way. There's definitely a way, because there's a lot of money to be made. And yeah, I've got 3,000 followers, and on Spotify, I maybe make, if I'm totally honest, about £50 a month. But that's 3,000 followers, right? And that's a catalogue of 25 cover songs. You could do the maths yourself and figure out, you're right, you have to put the work in, but it's doable, right?
Yes, that makes an awful lot of sense if you do the maths.
Yeah.
Which I'm not good with maths, so
get the calculator.
That's true. I've got no excuse anymore in the digital age. And then we've got one more question, and this is from Roxanne. So she's written, "Thank you, Gareth. You didn't mention radio. Is that because the playlists are already sewn up? Are there any tips for when you start on offering your songs to radio and also Spotify?"
Well, I didn't mention radio because it's not my area of expertise, unfortunately. So I would ask somebody else to advise you on how to get your music on the radio, because it's beyond me. It's beyond my expertise. But we've talked about Spotify, and I think it's all about getting the followers. You don't need radio play. You don't need to be signed to a label these days and have a publishing contract or anything like that. I think it's all doable as a solo artist or performer these days. And I think I'm not sure if radio even, like I said, I'm not an expert, but would it even pay the same as Spotify? I don't even know that.
Fair enough. That is a question for another human being. So this will be the last one. I'm just going to quickly scan the questions again, just in case I've missed something else. But I'm not sure I have done. Okay. No, there are better questions from people from the stream. So these will be the last few questions. So can you elaborate on how it works with cover versions you put on DistroKid? Do you need permission for the song's owners first?
Yeah.
What percentage do they take? Are there any artist songs you can't cover?
Okay, but that's a bunch of questions, right? How it works on DistroKid is you upload the cover, and as you're uploading it, it asks you, is this your original work or is this a cover song? So you click the cover song, you type in what song it is, and then you pay, I think it's an extra £17 or something in that ballpark. I'm not quite sure, but that's for a year. That's for licensing the cover song, that cover song for a year. So as long as you make, you sell 17 copies of it on iTunes, you're good. Do you know what I mean? So you license it for a whole year. What they have a team of people who go behind the scenes and secure those licenses from the right people who, the artists, representatives or whatever. I don't believe there's a song that you can't cover. It's all legally binding. There's a contract in place, and it's all done above board and very simple. That's why I recommend DistroKid. And what I didn't say in the video is they distribute to all the stores, whatever store you want it to distribute to, iTunes, Deezer, all the Amazon One and the Google Play, and Spotify is obviously. And there must be like 20 odd different platforms that you can opt into distribute to, and it's just so easy. You can do it yourself. Like I said, you don't need a recording contract these days to distribute.
Fab. Have you? This is the last one. Have you ever got into trouble for posting covers anywhere?
Into trouble? Well, I don't know. I mean, in the early days of YouTube, if you'd post a cover, you'd get the video blocked because they hadn't secured the correct licenses or agreements with the copyright holders. These days, it's all done fluidly with YouTube. So whenever you upload a cover, it's generally copyright claimed and then revenue shared instantly. I mean, I run into trouble on my guitar lesson side because of a different issue, which is to do with the tabs, copyrighted guitar tabs, but that's a separate thing. In terms of covers, you're fine. I don't think you'll have any issue uploading covers to YouTube these days. I think it's all dealt with by YouTube, and it's all very efficient and done for you.
Okay, fabulous. So that brings us to the end. I don't think there are any more questions.
Right, let me flip it on you, Isabella. You're a musician, right? Sorry, I'm catching you unawares here. Have you ever? How much have you participated, and how much thought have you given to doing this? Trying to generate content on YouTube or trying to grow a following on Instagram, or as a musician, is that something that you seriously consider? Had you considered before watching the video or this having this conversation? Is it something that you consider any differently now?
I definitely had done before the video. It only made my enthusiasm for it grow a little bit stronger towards it. It's like, yes, this makes perfect sense, all of this. And I think most people my age, and especially younger, know that social media is the way to go. You only have to look at all of the youngest artists coming out now. They're mostly Instagrammers or influencers in any regard, or TikTokers. So people are being signed off just TikTok alone. But the interesting thing about social media, as I'm sure you know, is that you can be fully independent and not have to sign, and have as much control over your own music as you possibly can. And I'm sure that was a bit of an ageist thing to say. I'm sure there are loads of people who are older than I am, who are not in their 20s, who know how great the internet is and how it is the future. But it is really interesting to see where it will go, and looking at things like Twitch and everything else that will come after TikTok, and what will be the next interesting platform. Yes, that's my take.
It's definitely an exciting place to be, but I think we're being we've got short on time now. We're being ushered away. So I really appreciate you, the awesome questions that you put to me, and thanks everybody for taking the time to listen.
Thank you for answering them so well, and thank you again, everyone else. Goodbye. Fare thee well.
Bye.